There comes a moment in every relationship when actions begin to whisper louder than words. The truth is rarely shouted. It hides in silence, in sudden changes, in the little details that don't add up. When another presence slips quietly into the picture, it leaves behind subtle traces invisible to most, but undeniable to the heart that pays attention. This isn't about suspicion for its own sake, but about recognizing the shifts that reveal where someone's loyalty truly stands. When someone begins to hide another presence in their life, one of the first places it reveals itself is in the way they treat their phone and their digital world. A phone is no longer just a tool for calls and messages, it becomes a private vault, guarded as if every notification carries a dangerous secret. What was once left carelessly on the couch or the dining table is suddenly glued to their side, never out of reach. They check it constantly, even when nothing seems urgent, as if expecting something or fearing that a message will pop up at the wrong moment. The glow of the screen turns into a shield, a distraction, and a barrier between two people who were once comfortable in each other's openness. There is a subtle but noticeable shift when secrecy takes root. The phone begins to tilt away when it's being used, the brightness is lowered, and even the sound of a new message brings tension. Passwords that were once shared or casually mentioned are suddenly changed with explanations that feel vague or unnecessary. The once transparent habits, scrolling together, sharing memes, laughing at random posts, disappear into a world of silence. It is not just the action of hiding that speaks, but the energy behind it. A person who has nothing to conceal doesn't feel the need to guard their device like a lifeline. But when another presence enters, the phone transforms into a wall, keeping one part of life carefully separated from the other. It's not only about the physical handling of the phone, but also about the behavior that comes with it. There's a new hesitation in replying to messages in front of you, a sudden urgency to step away when calls come through, or the classic excuse of just work, for conversations that last far longer than they should. These small changes may seem harmless when viewed in isolation, but together they paint a picture of someone protecting a hidden thread of communication. The very tool that once brought connection between two people now becomes a weapon of distance, building an invisible line that is hard to cross. Even silence becomes suspicious. Notifications stop showing up on the screen altogether, as if the digital world has gone quiet. But the truth is, silence on the surface often means careful curation behind the scenes. Muted chats, deleted conversations, and hidden apps designed to leave no trace. It's not always the presence of noise that reveals a secret. Sometimes it's the eerie absence of it. A relationship thrives on trust, and when secrecy seeps into the simplest things, trust begins to unravel thread by thread. The heart notices what the eyes pretend not to see. A phone turned face down, a rushed swipe when someone enters the room, a quick lock of the screen. These are not just random gestures. They are the language of concealment. And while technology may provide the perfect cover, it is the behavior surrounding it that exposes the truth. Because in reality, the act of hiding speaks louder than any notification ever could. When distance begins to grow in a relationship, it rarely announces itself with loud declarations. Instead, it creeps in slowly, almost invisibly, like a shadow stretching longer as the sun sets. What was once natural closeness begins to fade, replaced by silence that feels heavy and moods that change without warning. The laughter that used to come easily starts to sound rehearsed, and conversations that once lasted for hours shrink into short, fragmented exchanges. The person sitting across from you is the same, yet something feels altered, as though an invisible wall has risen between you. That wall is often built when attention and emotions are being invested elsewhere, leaving behind only fragments for the person who should be receiving them fully. This emotional distance shows itself not only in words, but in the energy that surrounds them. There is less enthusiasm in sharing details about the day, less patience in listening, and more irritability over the smallest things. Where there was once eagerness to connect, now there is avoidance. Mood swings become frequent. One moment warm, and affectionate, the next cold and withdrawn. It leaves you feeling as though you are walking through a maze, never sure which version of them you will meet, never sure how to move without triggering a reaction. This unpredictability is not just a sign of stress or distraction. It often signals that the heart is split between two worlds, and the weight of maintaining both creates a storm of inconsistency. Affection, too, begins to shift in subtle but undeniable ways. The spontaneous hugs, the playful touches, the effortless warmth that once existed start to diminish. Physical closeness feels like a task rather than a desire. Intimacy becomes rare, and when it does happen, it lacks the depth and connection it once carried. The body may be present, but the heart feels absent. It's not just the absence of passion, it's the absence of genuine presence, as if part of their mind is somewhere else with someone else. The small gestures that once built a strong bond begin to disappear, leaving behind an emptiness that words cannot fill. Emotional distance often leads to a deep sense of confusion for the one left behind. Questions form silently. Did I do something wrong? Are they just stressed? Or is something else pulling them away? This self-doubt grows because the shifts are rarely explained clearly. Instead of reassurance, you are met with deflection or irritation, which only deepens the gap. The person who once felt like home begins to feel like a stranger you're trying to reach. But the door keeps closing before you can step inside. What makes this kind of distance so painful is that it cannot be measured easily. It's not about how much time is spent together, but how present they are when they are with you. Someone can sit beside you on the couch yet feel miles away, lost in thoughts they will not share. And while words may deny that anything is wrong, the heart always recognizes when love is no longer flowing freely. Distance is not created by physical space. It's created when energy, attention, and affection are given to another, leaving you with only the fragments that remain. When secrecy begins to weave itself into daily life, it doesn't take long before schedules start to look different. What was once predictable and steady suddenly becomes a puzzle with missing pieces. Late nights that never used to exist now appear on the calendar, explained away with vague reasons like work ran over or a friend needed help. Plans are made and broken with little notice, and the rhythm that once felt secure is replaced by a pattern of uncertainty. The days no longer feel shared, but borrowed. Borrowed by someone or something that never gets named. Excuses often come dressed in ordinary clothes, which is why they can be so convincing at first. A meeting that runs late, a sudden errand, an unexpected obligation. These sound believable, even reasonable. But it's not the excuse itself that matters most, it's the way it's delivered. Answers become shorter, details become blurred, and when asked for clarity, the tone shifts into irritation as if the very act of questioning is unreasonable. The truth is, someone with nothing to hide doesn't fear explaining where their time went. But when another presence is being concealed, every question feels dangerous, every answer must be rehearsed, and every hour away becomes a story carefully crafted to avoid suspicion. The most telling sign lies in inconsistency. A schedule that used to be steady now carries gaps that cannot be explained. Stories change when repeated, timelines don't match up, and coincidences begin to stack until they no longer feel like coincidences at all. Even the body language gives it away. The hesitation before answering, the nervous glance at the clock, the rush to move on from the topic. It is not just the absence that hurts, but the constant feeling of being left out of something important, of watching time slip through their fingers into places you cannot follow. There's also the matter of availability. Once, they were quick to respond to calls or texts, always ready to share their day. But suddenly, their phone is unreachable during certain hours, their replies delayed with flimsy explanations. I was busy becomes the blanket excuse, yet the silence stretches too long to feel natural. The small windows of absence become patterns, and those patterns begin to reveal where loyalty is being spent. Time, after all, is the clearest currency of love, and when it is invested elsewhere, the lack becomes impossible to ignore. What deepens the ache is not only the schedule changes, but the detachment that accompanies them. Even when present physically, the mind seems elsewhere. They come home late, drained not from work, but from balancing a double life. Their energy is different, their stories lack enthusiasm, and their presence feels more like an obligation than a choice. The excuses may buy time, but they cannot buy authenticity. Because at the end of the day, a schedule that no longer aligns with love tells its own story. A story of someone splitting their world into two while hoping the cracks between them go unnoticed. When a connection begins to fade, it rarely disappears all at once. Instead, it withers slowly, showing itself in moments that once carried warmth but now feel cold and mechanical. Intimacy, which was once a natural expression of closeness, becomes rare, and when it does happen, it lacks depth. What used to be about passion and genuine desire turns into something that feels like an obligation, as though a role is being played rather than a bond being shared. There is no spark in the touch, no fire in the kiss, no lingering embrace that communicates safety and love. It is not just the body that goes missing, it is the soul behind it. This absence is not limited to physical closeness. It stretches into the emotional fabric of the relationship as well. Conversations lose their richness, laughter is no longer effortless, and small rituals that once brought joy begin to disappear. The person who used to share dreams, stories, and feelings now becomes quiet, guarded, and uninterested. Instead of being a partner in every sense, they become more like a roommate, physically present but emotionally absent. The space between two people grows not because of distance in miles, but because of distance in heart. The change is often subtle at first. Maybe there's less hand-holding, fewer goodnight kisses, or less eye contact during simple interactions. Over time, those little absences pile up until they create a void that can no longer be ignored. The warmth that used to fill the room when they walked in is replaced with a heaviness, a sense that something essential is missing. Intimacy thrives on connection, on trust, on being fully present with another person. When that connection is being secretly shared elsewhere, what's left behind is only a shadow of what once was. Even attempts at closeness can feel strained. Moments that should feel natural begin to feel forced, and affection that once flowed freely now arrives in brief, calculated doses. A hug may be given, but it feels rushed. A kiss may happen, but it lacks tenderness. The eyes that once lit up with love now look past instead of into you. It's a silence that screams louder than words ever could, and though explanations may be offered, tiredness, stress, or being busy, the heart knows the truth. When love is divided, its absence cannot be hidden. What makes this change so painful is the emptiness it leaves behind. Human beings crave connection not only in body but in spirit, and when intimacy fades, the relationship loses its heartbeat. It creates a loneliness even when two people are in the same room. One reaches out, only to find that the other has already pulled away, investing their energy in someone else. And while the words may insist that nothing is wrong, the lack of touch, the silence in laughter, and the absence of genuine closeness tell the story more clearly than any confession ever could. When guilt begins to weigh heavy on the heart, it often disguises itself in the form of sudden kindness. Out of nowhere, gestures of generosity appear, flowers on an ordinary day, compliments that sound unusually sweet, or gifts that feel more extravagant than the moment calls for. At first glance, these acts may seem like pure affection, an effort to rekindle the spark. But when they arrive out of rhythm, when they lack the consistency of genuine love, they reveal something deeper. They are not born from a desire to express love freely. They are attempts to cover the cracks, to ease a guilty conscience, to create a distraction from the truth that lies beneath. This kind of kindness carries a different energy. It feels almost rehearsed, as though every gesture is carefully chosen to convince rather than to connect. The smiles that come with it are softer than before, but if you look closely, they don't reach the eyes. The compliments feel rushed, delivered at moments when suspicion may be rising, as if time to replace questions with flattery. A gift may be handed over with enthusiasm, but it arrives not because of celebration, but because of compensation. And while the surface looks sweet, the intention behind it is heavy with unspoken fear. Overcompensation often appears after long absences, unexplained silences, or noticeable changes in behavior. A sudden kindness acts as a shield, a way to distract from where time and energy have really been spent. The guilty heart hopes that a bouquet or a surprise dinner will silence the doubts, that temporary sweetness will mask the distance that has already been felt. But genuine affection does not appear as a patch for broken patterns. It flows naturally, without needing a reason. When kindness feels like a performance, it loses the authenticity that true love always carries. Another layer of overcompensation lies in exaggerated attentiveness. Suddenly, there is an overflow of "I love yous," of checking in more than usual, of acting extra considerate. While these words and actions should bring comfort, they instead raise quiet questions. Why now? Why so sudden? Why so intense after so much withdrawal? The rhythm of love has always been steady and balanced. But when another presence exists in the background, that rhythm becomes uneven, coldness followed by sudden bursts of warmth. It's not love, it's guilt trying to rewrite the narrative. What makes this so confusing is that on the surface, the gestures are pleasant. Who doesn't want affection, gifts, or sweet words? Yet the heart can feel the difference between kindness that grows naturally and kindness that is planted to cover lies. It's like tasting sugar in a bitter drink. The sweetness is there, but it cannot erase the flavor beneath it. Over time, these inconsistent displays of affection become louder than the silence they are meant to cover. They speak not of devotion, but of fear. Fear of discovery, fear of confrontation, fear of losing the trust that has already begun to slip away. Defensiveness is one of the clearest signs that something is being hidden, because truth does not usually fear simple questions. When nothing is wrong, even the most ordinary curiosity is met with openness. But when another presence is being concealed, every question feels like a spotlight, every casual inquiry feels like a trap. Suddenly, the tone shifts. Instead of calm answers, there are sharp responses, irritation, or even accusations. A simple "Where were you?" is twisted into "Why are you always checking up on me?" The question itself is no longer the problem. It is the fear of what the answer might reveal. This defensiveness often appears in patterns. Questions about the phone, the schedule, or sudden changes in behavior are met not with reassurance but with walls. The energy shifts from connection to conflict, turning the person asking into the villain. By making the questioner feel guilty, the one hiding something avoids the responsibility of giving a real answer. It becomes less about resolving concern and more about protecting the secret. The louder the defensiveness, the more it reveals, because people who are innocent rarely need to guard themselves so fiercely. Even body language tells the story. A sudden stiffness, a refusal to make eye contact, or a nervous laugh all signal discomfort. Voices rise, not out of anger, but out of panic. The heart races not because the question is unfair, but because it has landed too close to the truth. Defensiveness is a shield, but it is a fragile one, because it is built on fear rather than honesty. And fear, no matter how well hidden, has a way of leaking through tone, words, and reactions. Over time, defensiveness creates a cycle of confusion and silence. The person asking questions begins to hesitate, afraid of sparking another argument. Doubts remain unspoken, yet they grow stronger because nothing has been clarified. The one hiding grows more protective, more reactive, more determined to keep the walls intact. What should be an open relationship built on trust becomes a battleground where every simple conversation feels dangerous. And in that space, love suffocates, replaced by tension and unspoken suspicion. The tragedy of defensiveness is that it not only hides the truth, but also pushes people further apart. Instead of building safety, it creates fear. Instead of offering comfort, it creates distance. Instead of calming doubts, it multiplies them. Because when every question is treated like an attack, the message becomes clear: there is something worth hiding. Innocence has no need to fight so hard. Transparency does not fear light. But secrecy cannot survive without walls, excuses, and sharp defenses. At the heart of it, defensiveness is less about anger and more about survival. It is the desperate attempt to protect a secret that cannot live in the open. And while it may work for a while, it cannot last forever, because sooner or later the truth demands to be seen, and no amount of raised voices or sharp words can bury what the heart already knows. In the end, the truth is never hidden in grand gestures, but in the smallest of shifts. A phone guarded too closely, emotions that rise and fall without reason, excuses that do not align, intimacy that feels hollow, kindness that seems rehearsed, and defensiveness that builds walls instead of bridges. Each of these is a thread that, when woven together, reveals a larger picture. Trust is not broken in a single moment. It unravels piece by piece in the spaces where honesty once lived. And while actions may try to disguise the truth, the heart always recognizes what the eyes may hesitate to see. Because love, when shared fully, feels steady, open, and safe. Anything less than that is not love. It is a performance. And sooner or later, every performance comes to an end.